Hi, my name is Dan Paulson, and welcome to Just One Truth. This is a video series where I'm making comparisons between Lao Tzu, the Buddha, and Jesus. I'm making comparisons about how their inner spiritual teachings are the same thing. I'm going to jump right into it in this video. So if this is unfamiliar to you, I'm going to suggest that you start off with video number 1. I'll post a link down below. Go through number 1, number 2, number 3. This is number 2, but I'm going to gradually build. It's a complicated process. This is the way that all of the masters taught. And without further ado, let's get into it. For biblical references, I will be using the New Revised Standard Bible, and this video is a study of analogs. In this video, I'm going to stick with some teachings from Jesus, specifically. The teachings, even though from around the world, they all unlock to reveal the same thing, it can be a little difficult to emerge into that. There is very much a need in the beginning to probably keep it simple. Most people are familiar with the teachings of Jesus, but let me set this up. I take Jesus out of the New Testament. I'll use Matthew, Mark, Luke. I will use the Gospel of Thomas, and I will use the dialogue of the Savior. And the reason I do that is because when I read all of them and use this process, they all come from the same source. They all teach the same thing. Okay, sticking to the rules, I know this is going to be a difficult part for a lot of people, so just let me go there and keep an eye on and watch. Anytime you're going through these teachings, you become the person that is doing the teaching, that is leading, or that is going on the adventure. If you are going on an epic adventure, you become whoever the hero is in that journey. You put yourself in that mindset, and then you go inward, and that unfolds. If you are looking for enlightenment in a Buddhist manner, you become the Buddha. You have a Buddha nature. You are the person on that search. What does that mean by extension? In this case, and this is where the difficult part is, you have to treat Jesus or Christ, the Christ, in that same way, which means what? We use Christ's nature a lot. Ultimately, when you're doing this process, you become the Christ. You take on the role of this person who is going to go in and clean house. You're going to go in and take care of things. We'll just let it sit at that. I know a lot of people have trouble with that. This is a sticking point, and so I just wanted to set this up ahead of time. Again, if you're uncomfortable with it, just watch me do it, and I got it worked out between me and my God, so don't worry about it. You know, watching the first video, you know that leaving the supernatural behind means you let that go, and also that you don't put anybody on a pedestal or you don't get access to their knowledge, that this is for us, that we treat it that way, and once we do, yeah, we can get access to it. So really, we want to know what is in here. Okay, I've been talking about the analogs and the metaphor quite a bit, and I think that is where I need to spend a lot of time and focus right there. That is ultimately where the capacity to unlock the teaching comes into play. Understanding that right there, that's kind of the key. Knowing, turning it inward, and then knowing how the analogs work, and then the teaching emerges. So let's go there. And the first thing I want to do is start off with this right here. I'm going to read this verse in the beginning. This is from Jesus. Do not think that I have come to bring peace on earth. I have not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to set a man against his father, and a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And one's foes will be members of one's own household. Okay, what I want to do is make this video in such a way that when I read that verse again at the end, it'll make perfect sense. It'll fit the criteria of everything that we're looking for here. And what we're going to do then is just start with the analogs. And what are analogs? In a nutshell, in this case, analogs are things that we take from the physical world, things that we see from life around us as we watch people and things unfold. And we take those items and we make them represent something in our psyche. For example, we know today we have a conscious mind and a subconscious mind. They didn't know that. What did they know? They knew they had a carnal mind, a thinking mind, Everybody's aware of this thinking that goes on, presumably feels like it's in our head, right? Wherever it happens, that's where it feels like. But there's other things continually acting out and occurring from somewhere within us that we, back in their time, they didn't know, they didn't recognize, they didn't know how that was stored. They didn't know how it was put away electrochemically as a memory. It was just something that acted out. It wasn't present. Why was it there? It looked magical and mystical. So as they're describing this, they're describing things like, for example, acting out. That might be something they call a demon. They might call it a weed in your garden that grows to fruition, gets taken down, and grows back again and again. They're using analogs. Those are analogs. Those are things that are in the world that if you watch what they're doing cyclically, they're used to describe something that is happening here cyclically. We will see analogs used like this conscious and whatever, the soul, spirit, somehow, some part of us, the female portion of us, we will see them using male and female, husband and wife, father, son. Husband and wife is a good one. Why? Because the conscious and the subconscious, you start out in life with nothing. And as you grow and as you develop and as you become conscious, you begin to make decisions and you begin to decide whether you like things or don't like things. You take on the characteristics through the way you perceive life and the way you continue to store life. We know that. They saw that and they're trying to explain that the best they can. But they're using analogs to do it, to create stories, to create, for a variety of reasons, I'm certain, it was a way to get that knowledge out there. The analogs are the biggest thing, and I continue to find them. They are how the stories are constructed. It is what contains the mystery. If you have a father and a mother that produce an offspring that is a bad offspring, that is analogous to a conscious and a subconscious experiencing something in life and saying, it sucks, I hate it, or, oh, I like that, I'm going to go party again, I'm going to go overdo it, whatever these things that are destructive to us, that we carry with us, that's an offspring. That is considered something that wasn't there to begin with, but through life experiences, you created it. And that is how this continually works. But the analogs can be different. In Jewish time, there is actually one where they're using the temple and the Holy of Holies. So you can see, depending on where you go, the analogs are different. What you're looking for is how it unfolds. When you bring it inside, what does it do? Then you find how they reveal themselves. We're going to do that here. We've got more. For example, in the physical world, we need to eat in order to become what we are. And we kind of become what we eat habitually. In the spiritual world, consumption is taking things in. It is learning. It is being exposed to. It is not simply learning good things, but learning bad things, learning anything. We can consume good stuff. We can consume bad stuff. And we become products of that consumption. The correlation is there. The food becomes an analog for learning. That's how it works. And it'll continue to get deeper and deeper. And they didn't use the same analogs. People are creating stories going, oh, I like that one, but that's been overused. Oh, I got a different idea. They'll use something different. So what we're looking for is the effect, not necessarily the analog. That's just a carrier. As we go through this, we'll go through, it'll continue to unfold. Okay, let me move on. And what I want to do is let's go through some examples. Let's just put our hands on it and pick them apart. Let's look at them and become familiar with them. I'm going to start with a verse here. And you know what? I'm going to let you know that I'm just going to go through and look at analogs. I'm not teaching Christianity, and I'm not trying to teach in this video what Jesus is teaching. What I'm really doing here is we're just looking at verses grabbed here and there and seeing how the analogs work. Let's start there. We'll introduce more as we move along. This one is from Luke 5:36. Again, there's a context to it, but let's just take it verse by verse here at the moment. He also told them a parable. No one tears a piece from a new garment and sews it on an old garment. Otherwise, the new will be torn, and the piece from the new will not match the old. And no one puts new wine into old wineskins. Otherwise, the new wine will burst the skins and will be spilled, and the skins will be destroyed. But new wine must be put into new wineskins. And no one, after drinking old wine, desires new wine, but says, "The old is good." Okay, in this parable, we've got two things going on, one about the garment and one about the wineskin. They're actually two different lessons, or two different blocks of lessons that contain the same teaching, except the second one has an additional part to it. Let's take a look at them one at a time. If we go to the first one, he also told them a parable. No one tears a piece from a new garment and sews it on an old garment. In this case, we still do the same thing. We grab the components of this story and bring them inside. We become the garment. We are now the garment. Okay, with that, let's pick it apart. Well, first of all, it's a parable, which means you're supposed to figure it out. It's not face value, right? We know that it's a verbal puzzle. No one tears a piece from a new garment and sews it on an old garment. That means that if we are an old garment and we're looking for a piece of a new garment, this is an old life and we're looking for a new life. And if you just leave your old life in place and go start over, I'm just going to fresh start, completely leave everything in the past and move on. The question is, did you leave it in the past? If we haven't left it in the past, what you're going to find out is that your life hasn't changed. It's going to continue to be ruined again. The new life going on to your old self isn't going to change your life. You still have issues to resolve from the past. If you leave those in place and continue to move on, but don't resolve those, you're going to find that they continue to emerge over and over again. This goes on to say, otherwise the new will be torn, and the piece from the new will not match the old. Yeah, the new garment, that's you trying to be the new garment, putting on old life, which will ruin you. Or if you move on and try to put new life in your old self, that's not going to work. The new life won't work. You have to have a rebirth. You have to get rid of the old self first before you move on. And that's the lesson that we get out of the garment one. If we move on to the next one, the same thing happens. We are now the wineskin, however. It's going to be the same teaching, simply held in different analogs, different componentry to encapsulate the teaching. We're now the wineskins and we want new wine. Same thing. We want a new experience. We want new input. We want to ingest something new and different in our own life. And wine is representative of that in this case, with wineskin, yes, being us. The new wine will burst the skins if you put new one into your old self. Yeah, it's the same thing that applies. If you try to change your life without resolving the pain of your past, you're going to find that the pain of your past is going to continue to somehow dictate certain parts of your future life. You have to find a way to leave that in the past. And this is warning us right here that if you just try to move on while leaving things in the past, it's not going to work. In the end, though, what happens in the wineskins? New wine must be put into new wineskins. You need a rebirth before you move on. However, what does it say in the end? And no one after drinking old wine desires new wine, but says the old is good. I'll tell you the way I read this one. I don't see this one as completely straight up, and it's not a teaching verse per se. I think what this is letting us know that most people aren't going to like doing this. The old way of life is, most people are going to just say that is all there is to life. That is what there is. Yeah, we'll let this verse go right here. This is kind of, to me, and this emerges in other places in the teachings as well. This is kind of, I think, letting us know that it isn't for everyone. Most people would just prefer their old life and the easy belief system. This turning inward and digging inside is not fun, and it's reserved for certain people. Anyway, okay, there we go. That's how we continue to use the same process and bring out the nested teaching that is in these. Let me move on to a couple of more examples that are fun. These are a couple of very short examples of something that is a variation. There are no analogs. These ones are very short and very straight up. But they're difficult to understand and they don't make sense until we use the same process on them. So let's take the first one. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Well, that sounds good, doesn't it? Maybe. I don't know. To what degree? What if you're in a land where you're being bombed and destroyed and your country's being... What if it never stops and you mourn? Are you finding comfort? No, comfort comes from resolving issues. If you read this at face value, you can't get much out of it. You can, but it's not complete. It doesn't tell you everything you need to know. When you turn it inward and use it upon yourself, blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. What we need to mourn are the things that we hold inside of us, that we keep encapsulated, that we're not going to let anybody know about. It's dirty, it's nasty, it's ugly, it's hurtful, it's somehow something that we keep encapsulated away. It hurts us. We've been raped, molested, abused. Somehow, some way we feel shame, hurt, and we put that away. And when we do, our lives will never be okay. We are becoming we're becoming divided, we are judging things, and it's going to start cycling. We're going to start seeing a repetition of something that happens here. There's a result in using this as a process and seeing what's happening. Mourning is a way of healing. Mourning is a way of looking at the issues that you have inside of you and resolving them. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. If you don't mourn those things, you'll never get comfort, but only you could know that inside. When you do mourn them and you resolve them and you get past them, they don't hurt you anymore. You'll be comforted. That's simple. It's healing. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Same thing. This is the earth, not the earth out there. Nobody gets the world. This is your earth. This is your world. This is where you live your experience up here. Meek means don't fight it. Don't be frazzled. When you're meek, usually you're having fun, laughing, goofing around, tickling the kids, doing something different. Meek means not fighting, not holding anger inside, as within, so without. Okay, before moving on from this explanation, I'd like to explain it a little bit more. Let's look at it again. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. And as good as everything that I just said sounds, at some point you still look at it and go, how do I do that? How do I interact with it? There's a finer degree of resolution that we take these to. And in this case, it isn't just about being meek. In fact, it's not about being meek. There's times you're going to have to defend yourself, and that is not being meek. This is not about the external world. It's about the internal world. What do you need to be meek over? What are you not meek over? The issues that we have as we're trying to inherit our earth, our brain, is that we are hard on ourselves, that we can think that we are worthless, ugly, stupid, all manner of things. We can think that we're horrible for things that we have done. We did things as youngsters sometimes that later you have regrets for. All of these things are things that we can be very hard on ourselves for. And when we are hard on ourselves, that invokes a emotional state that creates us, that not only shows us what we have inside of us, but it continues to create us. We need to be aware of that and circumvent that process. Being meek means, in this case, really letting yourself off the hook. In order to heal, you have to stop putting yourself down. And that is really ultimately the most thorough way to interact with this verse right here that I can think of. This is how the verses work and become a living verse when they are a part of your life. Okay, let's keep looking at verses. This one actually is still simple, but has a few superfluous parts, so we'll introduce something new here. On the following day, when they came from Bethany, he was hungry. Seeing in the distance a fig tree and leaf, he went to see whether perhaps he would find anything on it. When he came to it, he found nothing but leaves, for it was not the season for figs. He said to it, "May no one ever eat fruit from you again." And his disciples heard it. Okay, how bizarre, huh? Yeah, we can't take it at face value. That sounds like Jesus was hungry, and since the tree wasn't in season and wasn't producing figs, he damned it to die or something like that, which is pretty ridiculous. If he had the power to do that, he had the power to make it heavily laden with figs. So we can't look at the story at face value again. We bring all of those components inside, and what we should start recognizing is that one of the metaphoric analogs that we can use for the mind is a garden. In fact, if we were to take and just create a little group of metaphors and analogies right here, we're talking about the human mind, and let's say we have a friend perhaps, or ourselves, or somebody somewhere that has constantly got issues, just working out. And you could tell that person in plain language, you need to straighten out your problems. And, that would be something that you could say directly. But if you needed to spread that around the population, yeah, it wouldn't go very far, would it? But you could do something different and say you need to weed your garden, or you need to exorcise your demons, or you need to make friends with the skeletons in your closet. And suddenly all those things are carrying that very same nested teaching. And here we go right back into this verse, and what we have is we have a fig tree that is growing from our garden. It is something that is emerging from us. And it is not producing something that we need. You're hungry, you want to learn, you're trying to live life, you're trying to grow, you're trying to experience, but you've got something you're bringing with you that probably isn't helping you. In this case, it doesn't sound like it's hurting you, it's not poisoning you, but it's not helping you, it's not giving you anything that you need. Perhaps a part of your life where you're bringing things with you that just are a waste of your time, a waste of life, a waste of other people. That perhaps it's enabling other people. Perhaps it's any number of things. This right here is letting us know that when we find things within ourselves that are not producing for us what we need, get rid of them. This is a growth step once we interact with it in that manner. And in this case, if you were to do it and you were to accomplish it and you're analyzing what you're doing is simplifying your life. You are getting rid of unnecessary things. You are focusing on the stuff that is important to you and realizing that all of the stuff that isn't important just isn't important. You can leave it in order to have a higher quality life in the areas that you enjoy and that is beneficial. You leave the other stuff behind. Okay, I want to pull this next one from the non-canonical Gospel of Thomas, verse 8. And he said, "Man is like a wise fisherman who cast his net into the sea, and he drew it up full of little fish. Among them, the wise fisherman discovered a fine, large fish. He threw all the little fish back into the sea, and with no difficulty chose the large fish. Whoever has ears to hear should hear." Okay, this verse is there in a sequence in 8, but again, I'm just going to jump right into the interpretation so we can get used to the analogs. We are the fishermen. At this point in time, if we were to throw our net out into the ocean, out into the sea, that is throwing it into our lives. That is throwing it into what it is that we experience. Every bit of us. Throw it into your mind. Pull it out. What do you get? You'll get what was originally there, the thing that Jesus is going to allude to over and over again, to become one again or become like a child again in order to get to the kingdom of heaven within. In this case, there's one aspect of us that we want to get back to. It's that part of us that was in place before we wired ourselves with all of our emotional baggage, the things that we want to get rid of. This is telling the fisherman the uneducated fisherman, throw your net out, take everything that comes out of that net and get rid of all the little stuff that is unimportant. Keep the one big thing. That's it. Let him with ears to hear. That's Jesus' code for pay attention to this one. Okay, watch this. Let's go to the Bible. Okay, this one is the parable of the lost sheep, and we're catching it here where Jesus has already been talking. I'm going to jump right in here so we can take a look at the analogs. What do you think? If a shepherd has 100 sheep and one of them has gone astray, does he not leave the 99 on the mountain and go in search of the one who went astray? And if he finds it, truly I tell you, he rejoices over it more than over the 99 who never went astray. How, if at all, does that sound familiar yet to the first verse, the one that we just pulled out of the Gospel of Thomas about the fish? Okay, remember in the first verse, we were the fishermen throwing our net into the sea and pulling everything up. Now, in this verse, the first thing we do, we grab all the components and we go inside. We're the shepherd. All the components, all the sheep, the missing sheep, all the 99 that are not missing are all component parts of our psyche. So the 99 references the bajillion things that we've become in life. And the one thing that has been lost is the one thing that we want to get again, what we had in the beginning. We need to get rid of all of the other things. Here we see that we are essentially teaching the same lesson that we first demonstrated for the fishermen in the Gospel of Thomas, last verse, to this one here. We're teaching the same lessons here. We just have a different audience. We're telling the same thing to different people with different lifestyles in our community, where life is very simple compared to what we have today. Okay, I think I might bring this one to an end. I'll throw a couple more things in there, though. Let's go back, first of all, to this part right here. Remember in the beginning? Do not think that I have come to bring peace on earth. I have not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to set a man against his father, and a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And one's foes will be members of one's own household. How does that sound? I was going to just let it sit there, but I think I will go ahead and go through it. First of all, this is a little off. If you're studying on your own and you go all the way back to Greek mythology, you will find the destruction of bad children. Kill them, wipe them out, do something. That continues to evolve. And by the time Jesus' time is around, they're teaching it by killing off your enemies and giants, people that have taken your things. But your offspring that you've produced, your bad children and things like that, they have turned from bad kids into unhealthy kids that need to be healed. Now, the analogs are still there. The face of them is changing. Still doing the same thing. They're just making it more soft sell to the population carrying a vehicle that is different. It's just a different vehicle. Okay, so the offspring that we have produced, these are just analogs for the things that we hold inside of us. The consciousness is in charge. The subconscious obeys the conscious. However, when the conscious isn't taking charge, the subconscious is acting out, which means if you're doing something that you don't like, you programmed it. You don't know that. And you didn't do it intentionally. It's programmed by the way you hold the emotional state of the experience. The anger, the pain, the shame, the hatred, the I'm worthless, all of those things. Those are the offspring that have to be wiped out. Those are what the foes are in your own household. Okay, and this one served as a good example for me. This is one of the very rare times you're going to see Jesus use the example, or the works attributed to Jesus is going to use that, destroying your other family members. You'll see family members being disregarded and a variety of other things, but a lot of times, yes, it's healing sick offspring. there is a blend here. They're all doing the same thing. The offspring are always up here, and what you're wiping out and destroying is always up here. What you're healing is always up here. All of it is always up here. When you use this process to look at Jesus' work, almost every bit of it reveals an inner teaching like this. If it doesn't, it's a verse that supports somehow this inner teaching. There is none of it that is plain language. Not a bit of Jesus is meant to be plain language. And if it sounds plain language, it probably supports a cryptic teaching. It's not plain language. Okay, I'll go ahead and bring this video to a close. I'm going to continue to do this. I'm going to come back now with some Lao Tzu and some Buddha and continue to introduce each of them and then start making cross references between them as well. I've got a lot of material to work with. I can go do videos like this for a long time. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you got something out of it that is life useful. At the end of the day, everything that I find here is something that no one can give you. It's something that I realize it can only be found on your own. Or maybe people can help guide you. I mean, I got a lot of guidance. Everything that we've had from our past is there. But when we take that path, it goes in our own head, and it's a personal path. It's one we take alone. And we share lives. But that inner path goes to the places that we don't want anybody to know about. Anyway, till next video, love one another, and we'll see you then.